What if just 6 days were enough to change the course of history? In June 1967, Israel and several neighboring Arab states fought a war that lasted less than a week. Despite its short duration, the conflict dramatically reshaped the Middle East, redrew borders, and left political consequences that continue to influence the region today. More importantly, the Six-Day War demonstrated how intelligence, air superiority, and rapid military decision-making could outweigh numerical strength on the battlefield. In this video, we'll explore how the war began, why it ended so quickly, and why its legacy remains one of the most debated chapters in modern Middle Eastern history. The roots of the Six-Day War stretch back to 1948, when Israel declared independence and fought its first war with neighboring Arab countries. Although the fighting ended, lasting peace never followed. Israel focused on protecting its security, while many Arab nations hoped to reverse the outcome of the earlier conflict. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, border clashes, political tensions, and military buildups became increasingly common. By 1967, the situation had become extremely fragile. Both sides believed they were acting to defend themselves, but each also feared that delaying action could put them at a serious disadvantage. History has shown that wars often begin when both sides believe conflict is becoming unavoidable. By early June 1967, the Middle East had reached that critical moment. The region was on the brink of a war that would last only 6 days, but would shape its future for decades. In the weeks before the war, tensions rose at an alarming pace. Egypt deployed large numbers of troops to the Sinai Peninsula, while United Nations peacekeepers withdrew from the area. Soon afterward, Egypt closed the Strait of Tiran to Israeli shipping. For Israel, this was more than a political dispute. The strait was a vital maritime route, and its closure was viewed as a direct threat to national security. Meanwhile, Egypt saw these actions as a demonstration of strength and leadership within the Arab world. As diplomatic efforts stalled, military forces continued to mobilize. Both sides believed the other was preparing to strike first. This is a common pattern in history. When fear and mistrust outweigh diplomacy, even a small spark can ignite a much larger conflict. By early June 1967, war had become increasingly difficult to avoid. With air superiority secured, Israeli ground forces advanced rapidly on multiple fronts. In the south, Israeli troops pushed across the Sinai Peninsula, forcing Egyptian forces to retreat. In the east, fierce fighting ended with Israel taking control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. On the northern front, Israeli forces captured the strategically important Golan Heights after intense battles. The speed of these operations surprised military observers around the world. What many expected to become a prolonged regional war was largely decided in just a few days. The campaign highlighted the importance of coordination between intelligence, air power, armored units, and fast decision-making. There was no single reason behind Israel's rapid victory. One major factor was preparation. Israel had developed an efficient reserve mobilization system that allowed its military to respond quickly. Another key advantage was intelligence. Accurate information about enemy positions helped maximize the effectiveness of the opening airstrikes. Leadership also played a critical role. Israeli commanders were able to make rapid decisions and adapt quickly as the battlefield changed. Meanwhile, the Arab coalition faced challenges coordinating multiple armies with different command structures and operational plans. The Six-Day War demonstrated that in modern warfare, speed, coordination, and information can be just as important as the size of an army. By June 10, 1967, the fighting had ended, but its consequences were only beginning. Israel emerged from the war controlling the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. The region's political map had changed dramatically in less than a week. These territorial changes affected millions of people and created new political and humanitarian challenges that continue to shape the Middle East today. Jerusalem, in particular, became an even more sensitive issue because of its religious and historical significance to Jews, Muslims, and Christians. The war also laid the foundation for decades of negotiations, disputes, and competing claims over borders and sovereignty. In many ways, the questions raised in 1967 remain unresolved. The Six-Day War quickly became a case study in military academies around the world. Its opening air campaign demonstrated the value of surprise, intelligence, and air superiority, principles that would influence military planning in later conflicts. Politically, however, the war did not bring lasting peace. Instead, it reshaped the balance of power and set the stage for future confrontations, including the Yom Kippur War in 1973, when Arab states attempted to regain the strategic initiative. The Six-Day War may have ended in only 6 days, but its political and military legacy has endured for generations. More than half a century later, the Six-Day War remains one of the most debated conflicts in modern history. One of the biggest questions is whether the war could have been avoided. Some historians argue that growing military tensions made conflict almost inevitable, while others believe diplomacy still had a chance to succeed in the final days before the fighting began. These different interpretations continue to shape discussions about the conflict today. What is clear is that the Six-Day War transformed the Middle East in ways that are still felt decades later. It changed borders, shifted the regional balance of power, and influenced military strategy around the world. At the same time, it also demonstrated that victory on the battlefield does not always resolve the deeper political issues that caused the conflict in the first place. The Six-Day War lasted less than a week, yet its impact has lasted for generations. It reshaped the map of the Middle East, redefined regional power, and became one of the most influential military campaigns of the 20th century. Understanding this conflict is not only about studying history, it's about understanding why many of today's regional disputes continue to trace their roots back to 1967. What do you think? If the Six-Day War had ended differently or had never happened at all, would the Middle East be more stable today? Or would another conflict have eventually produced the same outcome? Share your thoughts in the comments below.